Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. We've got one team locked now to go to the NBA Finals. That is the Golden State Warriors taking down the Dallas Mavericks last night. We'll talk a bit about that. We've got some injury updates to get into, including Zion Williamson, maybe some contractual stuff as well. Lot to discuss. Keith Smith, NBA, joining me. I'm Trevor Lane. Keith, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. It's these 8:30, really 8:45 starts here on the East Coast for the Eastern Conference Finals. Like you wake up and then it's like 10:30 and it's like 10 more hours to go. So it's it's brutal. As we're recording this, there's only about 5 hours to go. So, clearly we'll make it, but man, it makes for a very long day.
So this feels like a late start to you. Definitely not the case to me. I'm like, oh, these games are starting nice and early.
Sure.
I'm used to them starting much later than that.
Yeah. No, it's tough, man. And especially right because they say 8:30, but we all know it's 8:45, right? Like we all know how that's going to play out.
Well, let's start before we get into Celtics Heat tonight, which I think is going to be the end of the Miami Heat this evening, unless Jimmy Butler has suddenly found a way to get the other 50% of himself back. That is clearly not there right now. The Golden State Warriors, they punched their ticket to the NBA Finals, take down the Dallas Mavericks. It seemed pretty clear. You talked about this yesterday. If you are the team that's heading into this type of situation, you want to get a team down quickly and you want to get them starting to think about vacation. The Mavs, to their credit, they fought all the way through, but it was pretty clear from the get-go that the Warriors were not going to let the Mavs win that one and get out of Golden State with the W.
Yeah, the key was the Warriors built such a big lead that when the Mavs made their run, it still didn't even really become a game. So that was the challenge when you get up by 25, 30 points, it's really hard to overcome that. We see 20-point deficits wiped out pretty quickly, but that high, that just gets tough because like I was trying to explain it to someone the other day, and that they were on a radio appearance where they were just like, what happens in these games where these big leads disappear? And I said, well, a lot of it is, it's the 3-point shooting and, teams will just start hoisting them. And if you get hot, it's, you can make up ground quickly. I said, but you have to think you're up 25, even if the other team goes on a 15-0 run, you still have a 10-point lead. Like that's tough. And that's, gets very difficult. And, congratulations to the Warriors. They were the better team throughout the course of the series. They have arguably been maybe the best team throughout the course of the playoffs. They dispatched Denver relatively easy in the first round. The second round was blanking. Who did they play in the second round?
Grizzlies, right?
Grizzlies, yeah.
There you go.
I completely blank. Sorry, Grizzlies.
No, it feels like that was months ago at this point. I don't know why.
Really that was a battle, right? They had to work to get that one. And then Mavericks, they got rid of them very easily as well. So even though they lost one, those games weren't particularly close, at any point in this series. So that's credit to the Warriors. They're I'm not going to say they're the dynasty Warriors again, but they're not far off. It doesn't look like.
Yeah, I mean they've got the depth now. I mean with pieces like Jordan Poole that are doing things for them out there. I mean Kevon Looney, where did this come from? Oh my goodness, he's been a force for them.
Kevon Looney scoring machine.
Yeah, like who would have guessed that? And then Andrew Wiggins, Maple Jordan is picking things up for them as well. He's been solid. Obviously not star level or anything, but he's doing the things that they need him to do. He's been fantastic. I like the way he was attacking the basket. So yeah,
good defense too.
Absolutely. And they've needed that. Was Luka the best player in the series?
Steph was, I think.
Okay.
I think it was Steph still, but Luka right there. Luka, if anybody had any questions, cemented his status as top 5 player in the entire league. I would say he's just unbelievable what he can do, and I think he just ran out of gas. I think Jason Kidd. It's hard to second guess playing Luka basically the entire second half.
Yeah.
I just don't know that Luka is cut out for that. Yeah. And that's not me. I'm not taking a shot at him being out of shape or anything because I think he was in fine shape by this point in the season. I just think it's hard to play, a whole half knowing you kind of have to do everything. So that's the challenge. And now Dallas moves into an offseason with some questions. How do they get better? First one, what do they do with Jalen Brunson? Mark Cuban, after the game, said, we want him here. We can pay him more than anybody else, and I think he wants to stay. So if that's the approach we're taking, then might as well cross Jalen Brunson off your free agent list. We'll be covering free agency fairly soon here, but yeah, let's see what happens with Jalen Brunson, in his next contract. But I don't know if I'm Dallas. We can pay him more than anybody else. Shouldn't equal. We'll pay him whatever it takes. Because they're Luka needed help and kind of want to see Jalen Brunson be the guy to provide it versus, this time it's going to be Reggie Bullock. This time it's going to be Spencer Dinwiddie. You kind of want it to be, if we're going to pay Brunson $20+ million a year, it should be Brunson every night that is going to show up. And sometimes in the course of these playoffs, he just wasn't able to be that guy.
I do wonder with his size, are we 100% sure this is just what he is from here on out in terms of being this level of player? Or is there some, I don't want to say fluke, but is there some contract year stuff going on here? What are we thinking of? I mean, I think he's very good, but is he really like a $20+ million per year player that you can pay him that and win games? That's not always the same thing. You can say a guy is worth this much money, but then winning games with that guy on that contract might be a different story. I mean, I think the Mavs need to keep him, but I don't know. If I'm the team paying him that much, am I convinced I'm getting that 1B that we need moving forward for Luka? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's really hard because, you can't let him walk because you can't replace him if he goes. But on the flip side, what are you going to lock into $80 to $100 million over the next 4 years? Probably going to have to. That's the reality of how these things go. Maybe you can get them on a slight discount. Maybe you can do one of those front-loaded deals where it declines year over year. That might not be the worst thing in the world. But it's one of those. It's kind of the epitome of the bird rights trap, right? Mm-hmm. Where we're stuck if we don't pay them because we can't replace them. But if we do pay them, we're running into the risk of, as long as you don't get crazy, it's not going to turn into a really bad contract. If you can get it, started out around 18 million or start it high and have it descend, but keep the total money around, 40 million, you're probably in pretty good shape.
I like Brunson a lot, but from the standpoint of basketball skills, I don't see him as this kind of otherworldly creator, right? He's the guy that likes to break his man down one-on-one, and then he scores on a lot of tough shots. And sometimes that's not the stickiest of skill sets year to year. And again, that's just all of that's feeding. I know I'm sounding very negative about Brunson, but there's some red flags there where I don't know if the Mavs are going to be happy. Now, it could be that they pay him and then they end up moving him in January or something like that. That could certainly happen. I don't think they want to let him walk away for nothing, but I don't know if they give Brunson a big contract and they say, okay, here we go. We were Western Conference Finals last year. Brunson's going to keep getting better. He's going to be our 1B guy. Off we go. NBA Finals, here we come. If I'm the Mavs, I don't think I can approach this summer that way. I think they've got to make some tweaks. They've got to add some more firepower. I'm not sure exactly how they do it, but I don't know if bringing back Jalen Brunson is enough to say, check that box off. Offseason is good, and we're loaded and ready to roll.
Yeah, also I'm not going to go into the whole article. Mark Stein just released an article about what's next for Dallas. He's obviously probably the media member who's closest to that team. But one thing he does say in his tweet is the Mavericks, contrary to long-held speculation, are unlikely to initiate an all-out trade pursuit of Utah's Rudy Gobert. And I think that makes sense. It would be hard to get that done, to get Rudy Gobert without giving up other key pieces of the team. And it is, I think, everybody who listens to this should know I'm not a person who's out on Gobert and think he's bad or anything like that. I just think, if you're Dallas, you're gonna have to give up so much to get him that I'm not sure that's the direction I would go. And then I'm with you on Brunson. I like Jalen Brunson quite a bit. When a big chunk of your game's based off making tough shots, it's a good skill to have, but I don't know that's a good skill I want to necessarily rely on. But, let's put all that aside for a second. Major kudos to Dallas on a great. nobody expected this, especially midway through the season when they were right around 500 or a little under, right around the turn of the calendar year. No one thought this was going to be how this went, and there they were in the Western Conference Finals. Great season for them, good step forward season. Hopefully now we've answered the can Luka win in the playoffs question. Now it'll turn to can Luka make a finals, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's got plenty of years left to do that.
Let's also talk Warriors finals. They're going to be getting a bit healthier. Gary Payton II should be back at some point for the finals, obviously dealing with that elbow injury from that Grizzlies series. But that's big, I think, for the Warriors and their defense. Is he the game changer that's going to completely change the outlook of a series? Maybe probably not, but he's certainly a guy that they want in there, a guy that they can lean on for some minutes, a guy that they can lean on to make some big hustle plays. So I think this is something that that'll matter for the Warriors and certainly help bolster their rotation.
Yeah, whether it's Boston or Miami, he's another guy you can throw at the wing scorers, because that's one of the things he does best is guard guys who score primarily off the dribble. So whether that be Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, whoever those guys are, Peyton's another guy you can put out there, and it's just another key quality defender added to the Warriors, who are already playing pretty good defense throughout these playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. Let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about the Blazers. Hiring Mike Schmitz from ESPN to be their assistant GM.
Super
Mike Schmitz
cool.
from way back. I mean, he used to come on when the Lakers had early draft picks. He was coming on our podcast and talking about Lonzo Ball and players like that. And now here he is. He's actually working for the Blazers as an assistant GM. Very hardworking guy and knows his scouting for sure. So great news and great hire for the Blazers.
Yeah, I think this is great too. It is. I think it is really cool that we're seeing this is a guy who made his path through the media. He was to use a Kevin Durant term, he was a blog boy back in the day, and then hooked up with Draft Express. But I had the pleasure of meeting Mike Schmitz a couple different times. One of the times, he was super cool. I asked him about some of the guys the Celtics had drafted for a little bit more insight. Could not have been, more generous with his time and kinder to give, his thoughts on them. But he's always very honest, but he does it in a way where it's not ripping a player. Like it's a very honest critique. You feel good about it. Like I honestly think he could come on and critique me, and I would feel like, oh man, like after I'd be like, wow, he thinks I'm awful, but I don't feel bad because of the way he said all these.
But I like him.
Yeah, exactly. Just look at the outpouring yesterday after Woj's tweet.
Sure,
there was not a single negative response to it, other than a couple people went, because they're going to be contrarian about everything.
Sure.
It is big time that he's there, and an extremely hard worker. You saw multiple people say like this guy lives this stuff, and if you followed him for any time over the last 5-6 years at least, maybe even longer, you've seen like he's tweeting from like some under 15 tournament in some Central European country on a Saturday, and like it's absolutely incredible. So super excited for him. Good get by the Blazers, and let's see what they do now draft wise. As this is a team that has semi punted on the draft kind of since landing Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. I don't want to say fully punted on it, but it's been kind of always like, we'll trade picks if we need to. We'll do this. They have landed a couple guys like Anthony Simons, Nasir Little later in the draft, but it's been one of those things where it's kind of always been an ancillary building piece. We'll see now if that changes moving forward.
Yeah, I do wonder if this changes what they do with their pick. Do they keep it now because they've got Mike there telling them which prospect will be the best fit, or do you say we need to build around Damian Lillard, win right now, and that pick is very much available on the trade block?
Yeah, one other thing I would say too is Portland's got an awful lot of roster spots to fill this summer. No matter how they go, whether they go the cap space route or not, they've still got a lot of spots to fill. And one way to fill spots with good players that are ready made to come right in is sometimes go to international free agents and bring some guys over that you can plug in, whether it be Americans that have been playing abroad or just true international players. And again, Mike Schmitz, he's a draft guy, but he's got all this great international international experience where he's seen, all these guys. I bet he's got a couple guys he's got his eyes on maybe to come over and join Portland from the overseas ranks as well. So, all around we'll see. But yeah, I am very curious to see how they approach just not only the draft, but this offseason and everything. And one point of clarity, Woj's article that he wrote about it made it sound like Schmitz will stay with ESPN through the draft. But yeah, he may be on ESPN commenting on all the players, but guaranteed he's going to be working with Portland and giving advice when asked.
Absolutely. Let's jump over to the Pelicans. The Pelicans announced recent imaging of Zion Williamson's right fifth metatarsal showed continued improvement. He's cleared to return to play progression without any restrictions. So that's great news in terms of Zion getting in a full off season of work and then preparing for next season. Again, missed the entire season this year, but the hope is that he can get back on track and be ready to go for opening night this next season.
Yeah, huge. I mean, no other way to put it. This is massive for the Pelicans. I just posted their offseason preview. Without looking, how many free agents, take the two-way guys out of it, how many free agents do you think the Pelicans have this offseason?
Oh, my gosh. I know they have most of their guys that are locked up. 4?
1.
That's it. Wow. I thought I was maybe aiming a little. I was like, maybe there's like guys that I'm not thinking of on the roster. I thought I was okay.
You've got 3 if you count their two-way guys, Gary Clark and Jared Harper.
Wow.
But of their standard players, just 1, Tony Snell. Jose Alvarado is on a partially guaranteed contract, which clearly they're going to keep him and let that contract become fully guaranteed. All the other guys, the other 13 players on standard deals are all signed for next season. So, yeah, I mean, and that's it. Continuity and consistency. Now you get your main guy back. Summer workouts, you're going to have him on the floor. Going into training camp, you're going to have him on the floor. It's way too early to fully lock this in, so we don't need to make this a lock pick. But this team's going to be pushing for home court advantage in the playoffs next year. I think they were pretty good in the second half of last year. CJ McCollum was awesome for them. His numbers were through the roof. And now you're going to add Zion to that. You'll get Valanciunas back. Brandon Ingram missed a lot of time. He missed like a third of the season too.
Yep.
So you get him back on the floor. I think this team has a chance to really be pushing for home court advantage because I like the way it comes together. They're 10, 11, 12 deep. But it's the back end or guys you don't necessarily need to play. So it's not like you're going to run into bad feelings about not playing. It's more guys who are kind of your stay ready guys and those kind of things. This is a really interesting team to watch throughout the offseason. I don't think we're going to see a big summer. I don't think they're going to make a bunch of moves because I think it's about we made our big moves. We got CJ McCollum. We got Larry Nance Jr. We did our stuff. They're going to add the 8th pick in the draft. They really best player available. They could go with a high potential guy, whatever they want to be. One other interesting thing on Zion, and I only just saw this come across Twitter. Brian Windhorst on NBA Today said that the Pelicans that all they're going to offer him is like the Joel Embiid style contract where it's not fully guaranteed. It's going to be, triggers to hit those guarantees in the end and something like that. He called it a Saints style contract, an NFL style contract where it's, very little guaranteed. I'll stick to the NBA side of it, call it the Embiid contract. I wrote about this extensively for Spot Track. So if anybody wants to find it, you can just Google Keith Smith, Zion Williamson contract extension and it'll pull up. But yeah, that's just another interesting piece of intel because that's probably their biggest thing they need to do this offseason is hammer out an extension with Zion.
It'll be interesting to see what the back and forth looks like on that.
Yeah.
With Zion, like he's obviously going to push back a little bit on that, but how much after missing the whole season, I don't think he's got a ton of leverage there. I think ultimately something gets done, but we've been saying for a while now that is the approach that the Pelicans need to have. They need to make sure that they have that future protection for themselves while still recognizing that when he's on the floor, Zion is an absolute monster. That's what we've seen, but he does have that trouble actually staying on the floor. So you have to build in those protections. Otherwise, you could be in big trouble. You sign him to a max contract, 5 years guaranteed. 2 years from now, that could look awful if you don't have some sort of safety net in there.
Agreed.
Nikola Jokic, Tim Connolly on the way out. Nikola Jokic is not. still on board.
Yep.
Still on board with the Denver Nuggets. It looks like he will take that supermax deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's I know maybe some people have it a little twisted because of the James Harden Daryl Morey relationship.
Sure.
But guys don't attach themselves to GMs like that. They coaches on occasion. It's more, and we know how this works. And I'm not by any means suggesting Jokic is going to want to trade because I don't think he does. We've seen this over and over again. I repeat this point a lot. The players who come from outside of the United States, this is home within this big giant country we have. That city becomes home for them. So it's far less likely for them to jump and leave. A lot of those guys stay for a very long time. We've seen it with Giannis. Now we're going to see it with Jokic. So no real surprise here, I don't think. But first guy I saw with this was Mike Singer of the Denver Post was the first one. And then I think since then, I think Sham Charania and Sam Amick have also chimed in. But, the more voices you add to the chorus on this one, the more likely it is Jokic will sign that supermax extension just as soon as he can.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, do you want to talk some contract options?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's play with a new feature
here. That's right. Okay, here we go. Oh, hey, look at that.
All right, guys. So one of the things we're looking to do, you guys know what we look like. We can make us little, and we can show you some stuff. So we're excited about this on NBA Front Office show here for you. We're going to start out today. We're going to talk a bit about some NBA contract options. I just posted this article posted last night for Spot Track. I went through all 39 player and team options and put out there what my projection is for what these players will do with these options. So we're not going to go through all 39 of them. The show already runs long enough as it is. So we'll skip over some of the more smaller ones and get into the bigger ones here. But you can go read the article, spottrack.com. I believe right now it's the lead article on the site, but it'll be up on the main page for a while there with this. So we'll skip through the Celtics ones. Those are two fairly minor ones. The big ones for the Nets, Kyrie, let's see. Who knows what's going to happen with Kyrie Irving, and then Patty Mills. Kyrie, we've been over it a million times, so I don't know that we need to go through that. I continue to believe he'll opt out, and then we'll see what the next deal becomes.
Yeah,
Patty Mills, if
he opts in,
right? I think he's going to opt in. I would have said in January, maybe even February, he would opt out and see if he could cash in again on another deal. But he really wore down as the season went along, played far too many minutes. I think now he'll look at it and say, you know what, am I going to get $6.2 million on the open market? Probably not. I think he opts in.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I think he ultimately does opt in, particularly given his age. Like if he was 28, sure, he hits the market, teams are going to be interested. But the age, 34, I think he's probably going to opt into that deal.
Yeah. I want to do Jalen McDaniels. Not that he's a big name player, but I want to touch on something here. That's something that is going to impact a lot of guys this offseason. And these are players where any player with less than 4 years of experience in the NBA, minus guys who are on first-round rookie scale deals, they're the only ones who work differently. Any other player, doesn't matter if you come over at 35 years old from Europe for a season, you are then subject to restricted free agency. So what we often see happen is teams will decline what looks like a super friendly team option for a guy like Jalen McDaniels, who's a pretty good rotation forward for the Hornets. $1.9 million seems like a no-brainer that they would pick it up. But what I think the Hornets will do, and this again is going to come up with a handful more guys, I think they'll decline that. Then they can make McDaniels a restricted free agent and hammer out a longer-term deal with him with control. Otherwise, what happens is he goes into unrestricted free agency in the summer of 2023 if they just pick it up, and then they won't have control and they may just lose the player. So that's why I wanted to talk about him, because this is going to come up for a handful of other guys.
I think this happened. The Nuggets were in this scenario with Nikola Jokic years
Absolutely
back.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they ultimately chose that path, and it makes so much sense. I mean, and you look at it, you say, "Oh, wouldn't it be great to have this player for 1.9 million?" Yeah, but it's more important that you keep the player long term, and the way to make sure you do that is restricted free agency.
Yeah, there's going to be a really good player we'll get to that this is a kind of a key thing on here. Cleveland Cavaliers, Dean Wade, same position as McDaniels. Don't sleep on Dean Wade. He was actually a pretty good rotation player for the Cavs in those jumbo lineups, and him getting hurt was a sneaky big loss for Cleveland. Just because he's a name, Trey Burke. This is why you don't give player options to lower tier rotation guys. It's only ever going to hurt you if they opt in, unless you really think that the player's going to pop. Denver's got two guys, both the Greens, Jermichael Green and Jeff Green, 8.2 million and 4.5 million. I think they'll both opt in because that's right in the range of are you going to get that kind of money on the open market?
Yeah.
Key thing with them, though, is they have early opt-in dates, June 20th for both of them. So that's actually pre-draft. So the Nuggets will know pre-draft if those guys are opting in or opting out. If they opt in, now they're under contract, and that makes them eligible for a trade. So good job by Denver to get those things done pre-draft.
I'm a little surprised more teams don't do that. More teams don't try to get that decision in pre-draft. I mean, but I understand why
don't want to go for it.
Players don't want that. If players want to know after the draft who's on the team, what are my minutes going to look like, and then make their decision from there.
They don't want to be traded at the draft either.
Right. Yeah. That's part of it too. But you know what? I mean, give it like Jeff Green, 4.5 million. It wouldn't surprise me if there was a non-taxpayer mid-level out there for him somewhere, just because of the need for wings around the NBA.
Or at least half of it. Like, I don't think he'd get the full.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I said it wrong. Taxpayer mid-level.
Taxpayer, yeah. About the 5-6 million, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But again, is that worth, that? I don't know.
You know what? I was a little surprised when I was putting this together and then doing the Denver offseason preview. This sounds weird to put it this way. He's only 32.
Really?
Let me double check. Maybe I did get now I'm having doubts that I got that right. Maybe he is a little older. I think though that I did get that right. Let's see. Oh no, yeah, I got that wrong. He's 36. Never mind. Jermichael Green is 32. See, this is why you can't have two players with Jay Green.
Jay Green.
So we'll get that fixed on spot track.
I was thinking, I'm like, he got traded for Ray Allen, way.
Oh yeah. When the Celtics had him initially,
that's right.
Absolutely. Yeah, back in the 2008 NBA draft. So we'll get that updated on spot track. The Detroit Pistons. We'll just run through these quick because the Pistons have a lot of stuff to do, and a lot of this is all going to be designed around getting after that max cap space. So Hamidou Diallo, Carson Edwards, Luka Garza, Frank Jackson, I think they'll decline their team options on all of those guys. Corey Joseph, 5.2 million player option. I think he'll pick that up. He seems to like being there. He was at least a part-time starter for most of the year. I think that'll go that way. And he'll be back, there, but I think they're going to decline all the other guys. Keep an eye on Frank Jackson. He can play. He can really shoot the ball too and play both kind of on and off ball. He'd be an interesting backup guard for a lot of good teams.
Keith, I scanned ahead. I'm so proud of you. You managed to slip in the MCU to the Houston Rockets. That's fantastic.
Yeah. In case it's a little hard to read, I wrote on John Wall's 47.4 player option. There isn't a world that exists where Wall doesn't pick up this player option, not even in the MCU multiverse. A buyout after, however. Let's see. I want to touch on Wall's teammate, though, Jayshawn Tate.
Yep.
So we said you decline team options sometimes to make a guy a restricted free agent. Because Tate only signed a 3-year total deal instead of a 4-year total deal. What's going to happen is if you can let him play that out and still have his restricted rights after. So the Rockets will take him back for $1.8 million next year. Clippers, a couple starters, guys. Zubac, definitely a starter. He'll be back. They're going to pick up that team option. Money is no object in LA. I think Nick Batum will opt out and then sign a deal that adds at least a year or two more onto his contract, probably for similar-ish money. He's been that good for them. And good for him because I thought he was done in Charlotte.
He looked very different in LA. But sometimes that happens when you have an older player who's asked to do a lot of things. When they move to a better team that only asks them to focus on doing a few things, their overall effectiveness goes up.
And he's part of that whole, Clippers having the best depth in the league and being able to play a bunch of different ways. All right, let's stop and talk your Lakers for a minute here. I don't know why poor Stanley Johnson didn't get his name bolded, but we'll get that fixed too.
That's
But
whiteboard material right there for Stanley Johnson. That's going to fuel his offseason fire right there. Right there.
Team options on Gabriel and Johnson. Gabriel's will get picked up because then his contract becomes non-guaranteed, and he'll have to fight his way onto the roster out of training camp, presumably. Stanley Johnson, his contract is immediately fully guaranteed if his options picked up. But I think he was good enough for the Lakers that they have to bring him back.
Absolutely.
I would be very surprised at $2.4 million. Kendrick Nunn, $5.3 million player option. He's already said he's picking it up. He would be completely irresponsible not to after missing last year. Then we get to Russ. I didn't say 100% Russ will pick this up because he's Russ. There's like a 0.00001% chance that Russ might say, oh, you know what, let's go free agency. I highly, highly, highly doubt that will happen. So we'll say it's going to happen, and then this will be a talking point for probably another month and a week-ish. What happens from there with him?
I've said it a bunch of times. I firmly believe Russell Westbrook is picking up the option. He's just not going to do it until he absolutely has to, because until then, he's trying to maintain as much control as possible to prevent himself from being traded anywhere he doesn't want to go.
Yeah, he 100% will not do it before the draft.
Yeah,
that is not going to happen. Miami Heat, PJ Tucker, $7.4 million, second year in a row. He's got a player option. Now he opted out of the Bucks deal. The Bucks kind of famously now misplayed their hand and said, go find another deal. Heat are not going to do that. Plus, I think Tucker, we've seen some real bumps for him this year at times. He looks like maybe he's finally starting to slow down a little, so he'll opt in, remain a key rotation player for Miami next year. Speaking of the Bucks, Thanasis isn't going anywhere. His brother's there. He's going to pick up his.
Yeah,
I think Pat Connaughton.
That one's interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting. This might be the biggest question mark that we've seen so far is Pat Connaughton at $5.7 million. I'm curious that my guess is he opts out.
That's my guess too, and that's what I would advise him to do. He may be the best shooter on the free agent market. Non-Malik Monk division. I think Monk can create his own shot a little better. And I'm taking guys like Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine out of the mix because it's a completely different caliber of player. But for somebody who is kind of purely a shooter, I think Connaughton is the best one. He's, again, got that early option date, 6/22, so ahead of the draft for him there. Bobby Portis has a player option too. Expectation has been all along Portis will opt out, then using his early bird rights, the Bucks will pay him considerably more money, and they'll re-sign him for more years, and he'll be back. Minnesota in a tricky spot with Jalen Noel and Naz Reid. That's the call it the. I'm gonna skip down to another guy here, Lou Dort, momentarily. Call it that same situation. You could make him restricted free agent. I just don't know that either one of these guys are guys Tim Connolly's gonna really feel like got to keep these guys at all, at all costs. So I think they'll probably just pick those up. Lou Dort is the guy I was talking about earlier, where I said this guy is the key for decline it, resign. Well, you cannot, under any circumstances, let him hit unrestricted free agency. You'll end up paying him way more money than you want to because some other team will jump in. Could one of the cap space teams throw an offer sheet at Lou Dort? Yeah, maybe, but probably not so much of a one that the Thunder are really going to blink at it. So, yeah, he'll be back. My guess is what we hear here is he gets his option declined. They make him a restricted free agent. And then this is one of the earlier deals we find detail, like, Thunder Lou Dort have agreed to 4 years, $60 million contract or something like that.
Yeah, I think that'll happen pretty quickly, and they're in lockstep with that. So wouldn't be surprised there. Mike Muscala, like you said here, I think he gets picked up as well. It could be picked up and then used in a trade at some point, but I do think he gets picked up.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Isaiah Roby, he just hasn't popped enough for me that they need to decline this option. They'll let that play out. James Harden, who knows? Boy. I continue to believe Harden will opt out, and I think they'll get a deal done. But I think it's going to be less than the max in terms of total money and years. I don't think he's getting a 5-year, $250 million whatever. So, max contract. I don't think it's going to run into that. I think it'll be less years, less overall money, and that's where this will go.
That's a difficult conversation to have with a guy like James Harden, who has spent a decade being the guy, the former MVP, to go into a contract negotiation where for the superstar level players, I'm talking about James Harden tier players, the LeBrons, the Kevin Durant, these guys, right? Max deal is underpaying them, right? That's just the way the system works. A max deal doesn't accurately reflect what their true value is on the floor. So if you're going into James Harden and you're saying we're not willing to pay you a max, that's a big dose of reality for James Harden to have to deal with. Like, hey, we believe you're not that guy anymore. That's what the dollars say when you go in and you're not offering him that max deal. I'm curious to see how that plays out. That's not going to be an easy conversation to have.
No, it's not, but you have to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to.
This is where him and Daryl Morey's relationship comes into play and really gets you to a good place, for player and team here. Shake Milton of the Sixers, he's too good for them to lose. There's no restricted rights at play here. Just pick up the team option for $1.9 million. That's a bargain for what he provides. Trey Lyles is interesting. If you actually go look at Trey Lyles' numbers and look at some of the game film, better than I think people realize. He's actually a fairly competent defender. He's got pretty good range for a 4-5 guy. He can kind of fill that stretch big role for a team and hold his own defensively. So the Kings, we make the Kings jokes and they do weird stuff still, and they're still occasionally doing weird things, but they've mostly made good decisions on options. So I think they'll pick this up and bring him back for $2.6 million. It would be kind of irresponsible not to. Svi Mikhailuk, your guy. It's just he's a one-trick pony, and the one thing he does well, he doesn't do well enough to offset the things he can't do, which are dribble, rebound, pass, defend. Only major parts of the sport. He can shoot, and that's about the extent of it.
Why you got to do that to Svi?
It's true, though. I mean, he can shoot. He's just got to shoot even better than what he shot so far if he wants to make it. So he's got a player option, kind of maybe a rare misstep by the Raptors to give a player option to a guy of this kind of caliber, but he'll pick that up, and it's not so much money. You can't work around it fairly easily. Last guy. Oh, boy.
No, I was going to move on to the Wizards. The last guy. I didn't want to sit there and be sad about Svi, for too long here.
But Bradley Beal, 36.4 player option. He's gonna opt out of it. We know that there's already reporting out there. The Washington Post was the most recent to report on it. He's gonna opt out and resign. He'll probably be on a 5-year max deal. We'll see if that looks bad at the end. Probably won't, but you worry about that down the line. And if things keep going the way they are, maybe it's not even the Wizards' problem to worry about down the line. But that's my guess there. So there's a run through the contract options. We definitely skipped through a handful of guys, but if you want to check that out on Spot Track. Give you all the stuff there. People have already been asking, what about Al Horford? What about this guy? What about that guy? Those are not options. Those are non-guarantees. We will have another piece coming about non-guarantees a little bit later after we have a little bit more clarity on some of them. I'm trying to really, put some sourced intel into this too. These are not just guesses by me. I'm having a lot of conversations with people trying to understand what teams' goals are, what players' goals are for free agency. I'm trying to really, put effort into this. So we'll have some of that coming as well with that. But these were the true options, team or player options.
That's right. And there's some interesting ones. There's a lot, though, that are pretty cut and dry. Like we know what they're going to do, and we have a good idea of that. But again, I think still important to go through and have an idea of who's going to be where, who's going to be out on the market, and all of that as we do inch closer to the NBA draft, which isn't like it feels kind of far, but it's not really that far. Like we're not that far away from like getting into the good stuff of the offseason in terms of the free agency, the draft, and all that.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff coming for you guys. We've been kind of, I'm not going to say with detail mapping it out, but mapping out what our next several weeks are going to look like here. We're going to get into some of the free agent stuff as the finals kicks off, because when that happens, we're not necessarily every other day. There's 2-day breaks in between some of the games and things like that. And as we all know, if the finals goes long, it'll run right into with only a few days leading up to the draft and all those things. Final draft decisions are due for college players if they want to return back to college. June 1st. So we're only a few days out from that as well. So we're getting there on, a lot of these things starting to really take shape here over the next couple weeks. We'll have a good idea of the draft picture. And then we're going to get right into, part of the reason we want to get these option pieces out there is because we've got a lot of guys that are going to be deciding on options here in the next, several weeks. So we're a lot of stuff coming, free agent rankings, tiers, all that stuff, some team stuff as well. A lot of fun stuff as we head into kind of what this show was designed around originally.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun. Going to be a busy offseason. Can't wait. And all the more reason to subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office Show over on YouTube. Don't forget to turn on those notifications. And of course, if you're listening to the Apple Podcast version of this, make sure that you do give us that 5-star rating and review. We love reading those reviews over on Apple Podcasts. Great way to help out the show. All right. Let's head into a holiday weekend. Got Memorial Day coming up on Monday. Everybody enjoy it. Spend some time with family. And until next time, see ya and stay safe.